this is Pixie doing another video. I'm just thinking about wealth and what does it mean? I guess really what's an asset as well. So something that you can retain it that has a intrinsic value. Like you could say a relationship's an asset. It's under some sort of contract that you agree to. Like especially things like marriage. If it's a boyfriend-girlfriend thing, it's got a fluid contract. Because the terms can change. I mean, the terms can change in marriage as well. But it depends if you've got like pillars that you define your marriage by, like in sickness and in health. So you're going to basically be there in the long term, supporting the person. And could you just say, well, I divorce these? I could divorce part of the contract, or somehow re-establish new vows or something. So yeah, I guess so. Because the world has been run like businesses. So we're own little corporations. Well, maybe a corporation could be a family, or a clan in that sense. These different companies. There's a lot of vehicles coming down here. And I guess really for changes around gender is that these companies have equal opportunities and access basically to resources. But they can still get judged by their delivery. I mean, this might change in the future if there's some like manpower and you've got machines and technologies to do that, or if it's brain power and you know you've got machines and technology to do that work for you as well. You just have to have the right instincts then, and enough savvy to know how to take things forward. But you might not have to overinvest intrinsically. It's about, I guess, playing the smart game. So it's kind of, it can bridge a lot of the problems there. But what we consider wealth, I mean, some people just think of money as money, but it's a tokenized value, and it forms into data. So when you spend money, I mean, it used to be a case you take money out, you pay for goods and services, and then these goods and services supply information back to government, taxes and all these other things. So there was a way to kind of measure it, but at a more a higher up view of it. Basically, you wouldn't you'd have statistics and things, but you wouldn't have intricacies of how it's spent, how it's getting used. And then these other services started to move more into data, and yet data it was all about data anyway. So data is a currency, and a lot of these services can be all sorts of things we do in life. And if you think of yourself as a company, it's also what you bring, values you bring into things. You often talk with like MGTOW, you know, what do they bring into the relationship, and that could be from both sides, and what do they need, you know. And some people say, well, just having me should be enough, or something. It's like, well, it doesn't quite work like that, because if you've got a roadmap or direction, you want that person to also be a part of it. You know, what's their roadmap? Are they just planning to go on lovely holidays and stuff? Spend the money that you earn. You know, if that's your roadmap, then it's quite a poor one, because all you're doing is basically to feel meaningful to someone else's life is your plan. And I don't think you can ever make a lot of money to do that, unless you're born with loads of money anyway, because it's just a road to failure. Because the children you bring up in that environment, some of them will want to be more like gold diggers, and then the other ones would be either quite confused or see the role as a male being quite sort of submissive, I guess, to some degree, and lacking in something. And so you really want to play the game of being the better self. And the same for women. It could be if they're looking just for if somebody appears like a gold digger or very needy in that way financially, it could be that there wasn't a proper support from her parents when she needed them. If it's like a female situation there. I mean, some men might be just sort of looking for money all the time as well, and that they wasn't really given some of the life's lessons or didn't get the values. So education of these things that you gain along the way, and it's from experiences. You just sort of have to unpack them and make sense of experiences, situations, mistakes, successes, whatever you measure these things by. A lot of things people do are like services. So I guess men, they're going to bring some work to the equation. They got some manpower they can use to get things done, and a woman offers them possibly legacy, so they can have children. There's also maybe psychological aid in certain ways. I mean, things like sex, it gives it a purpose. They feel valued, they feel wanted, but they get from love to a certain degree, and other things. And it should be really a part of the same thing, but one sort of forms more carnal part of the relationship. And ideally, there should be a movement from the sort of the emotional intercourse to the sort of physical intercourse, and then it probably goes into further, like social. You become part of that person's family, and they become part of yours, or friends, and all sorts of things. You more into relationships between the two, access to resources, access to networking. It's kind of where the roadmap, you draw out what you want there, because it could be that somebody's doing things without thinking about it. But if someone's got, in a relationship, sometimes people don't dig too deep, but if someone's got skill sets and they've got other things there, it could be to nurture that. Could be that they've got some potential, and it's just a choice there, but it should be put on the roadmap. Some basic planning, but yeah, things that generate wealth is like data, what you can bring as a service, or more basic asset stuff is what you can bring, your skills and physical energy to the situation. I mean, time's a factor, but that depends on technology. That's to shorten that down. And at some point, machines will be doing more of the work than the humans. And that's ideally, because I think without that, when society became more complicated, roles had to be drawn out. And some of these roles, because of resources were low, had to exist without the support. And so you had to find ways to sort of like commercialise them to a degree. And these people just become like slaves, I guess. That's how it got set up. You need a workforce. You can only pay them with minimum food, and you need to get the work done. So I think, well, control, manipulation. There we go. There we go. She's just some woman reliant on some guy. Guy rejects her. She doesn't like it. certain things he probably brings into the equation. It's money, drugs. And some of these things are temporal, so what's the real value of them? You know, it's a bit like, the thing is, like, sex is sort of a temporal thing. It just exists for, well, it's all temporary. It's just a short space of time, and we can leave some after effects of it. I mean, because how much you draw into it, feed off it, I guess. It's like any indulgence, and then also you can choose how to remember that experience. Does it sort of bind with your entity as a self? But yeah, it's like somebody who's quite broken, and she's had some pushback from the guy, and she's begging. And then it could also be, because there's an addiction involved. It could be drug related or something. So it's just kind of the weariness of her wandering around. Like, I've got nothing else. You gotta help me. But the thing is also, some people are soft targets, you know, they don't see their vulnerable sides, and it basically comes back to the experience. You know, you learn from others what you see, you live through some stuff, and then you find what works for you, basically. And then you figure out what you need to cherish that you value. You know, some people value food, and then they overindulge in food, and food becomes their addiction and their vice and so on, and you know, it causes issues, which is never that fun. I guess it's not that that women wouldn't work as hard as men. They just don't want to. And I think for some men they don't mind. So that's one of the key factors. Anyway, speak on up. I've got one. Speak to you. Bye.